They thought they could take my land. They thought they could force my gate open in the middle of the night. They definitely didn't expect me to be waiting for them with a shotgun when the sheriff pulled up. The vibration hit first. Hello. Metallic hum under my boots, like the earth itself was warning me. Chains straining, metal screeching, and boots crunching on gravel that only I should tread. I didn't run, didn't shout. I just held the shotgun across my arms and watched. 2 men forcing my gate open. One filming my garage. Their confident screaming, "We belong here." Then the light hit the bolt cutters, and the third man started measuring the driveway as if he could will my property into his control. Daisy growled once, sharp, protective. My old blue heeler knew what. I already felt something was very, very wrong. And then, engines. Low, rumbling, precise. 3 sheriff trucks rolling down my private road, cutting the night with red and blue. Minutes later, cuffs clicked. The smug smiles vanished. The president's arrogance froze in place. I remember the smell of that morning, the ridge smoking. With first light, air clean, cold. Daisy sat at my side, ears perked, watching the gravel like she could sense who had passed. And she had tire tracks. Wide, aggressive, deep treads. Not from Ups, not from Hank. These weren't lost drivers. They circled the gate, paused, then left. And my gut told me exactly why. They were looking. I crouched down and touched the gravel, still loose, still warm from weight shifting. They were here before sunrise. And they weren't messing around. Lived on this land long enough to know it speaks to you. Small things. A branch broken where it shouldn't be. A subtle shift in the soil. Tracks in the gravel. The land tells you everything if you're listening. And that morning it screamed, danger. I opened the mailbox to find the first envelope. Nothing too loud. Just enough to get under my skin. Notice of non-compliance. Garage color. Outbuilding violation. Private road easement dispute. Outstanding balance. You will comply. It was funny in a twisted way. I looked at Daisy. Can you believe this? I muttered, but my blood ran cold. It wasn't a warning. It was a test, and the tests kept coming. Cameras appeared on the hill, drones buzzing silently over my fence, trucks parked just past the ridge, people snapping photos of my outbuildings. Each time, their confidence grew, thinking I was alone. Thinking I was powerless. I let them do it. I watched. I learned. Asterisk the night they trespassed with the bolt cutters, I didn't flinch. Not then. Not even when the moonlight bounced off the metal in their hands. I had my shotgun. I didn't raise it. I didn't have to. The land had told me this moment was coming, and I was ready. And the sheriff's arrival, it's sweet vindication. But even then, I knew this wasn't over. Arrogance like theirs doesn't die quietly. Asterisk 3 days later, a drone hovered low along the north fence. I walked out, coffee in hand, Daisy at my heels. The drone's tiny camera word, catching my movement. I didn't flinch. I didn't wave. I let it hover for a moment, and watched it retreat like it had just realized it was being watched. That same afternoon, found tire tracks again, deeper this time. Close to the east gate. The dirt had shifted under something heavy. The line, heart hammering. Whoever was out here now knew exactly where to go. Asterisk, I've lived here alone for over a decade. The land has always been my companion. But those nights, alone with shadows and gravel and whispers of trespassers, even a seasoned rancher feels the weight. Daisy looked at me with those eyes that understood more than anyone. That day I realized the true cost of isolation. No one to call on, no one to argue with, only the land. And your own instincts as your witnesses. Asterisk, then came the SUVs. Black matching, 3 of them. Doors opened. 2 men stepped out with bolt cutters. The HOA president followed, perfectly poised in her blazer. As if nature itself should bow before her sense of order. She said 2 words. Open it. I stepped. Forward, shotgun across my arm. Not threatening, just calm, just a presence that said, you do not belong here. I saw it then, her smirk faltering, her men stiffening. And behind them, a low rumble. The sheriff trucks, silent but decisive. Handcuffs. Clicks. Arrogance undone. The point of no return? Asterisk. They had no idea what just happened, but I did. And neither did they. Power trips like this don't end with one arrest. They escalate, they plot, they wait. I've learned to listen. The next move would be mine. And this time it would not be subtle. The sheriff's trucks rolled off my property, dust settling like a blanket over the gravel. The cuffs had already dug into their wrists, but the humiliation in their eyes was just the beginning. I didn't watch them drive away. I couldn't. Land, my quiet, patient companion, still whispered, "They weren't done." They never are. Days later, I noticed something: new tire tracks carved into the soft dirt near the back fence. Different tires. Wider, heavier, aggressive treads. Not the same as the night they tried to force the gate. No, these were scouts or were strailers testing boundaries. I crouched down, brushing the dirt away. The tracks told a story, methodical, intentional, arrogant. I poured myself a coffee and leaned against the porch rail. Daisy sat beside me, ears twitching at every distant sound. A crow squawked from the ridge. That was when I noticed a glint in the tree line, a small, reflective sticker on what could only be a drone. Someone was watching, someone who thought I couldn't see them. The letters began again. Stamped, typed, aggressive. Each one a subtle threat, a reminder that the HOA president had not forgotten. The tone was bold this time. "We will enforce compliance. You cannot stop the board from taking action." I laughed. It's not a small chuckle. A full, belly-deep laugh that echoed off the hills. Daisy cocked her head. I let the words sit, soaking in the absurdity. They wanted me to bend. They wanted fear. But they had miscalculated. I walked down the ridge toward the east pasture, boots crunching on gravel. That's when I noticed the broken fence post. Subtle, almost dismissible, but not to me. The land had spoken. Someone had been here at night. Past my gaze, testing, I circled it, noting every footprint, every indentation in the soil. Not their usual sloppy marks. Professional, practiced, but overconfident. The kind of arrogance that makes mistakes visible, and they left something else behind. Tiny sticker, almost invisible in the tall grass. Reflective. Commercial grade. Drone footage. They thought it was clever. I picked it up and dropped it. In my pocket, it would tell me everything I needed to know later. Asterisk. 2 weeks before, they had tried subtle intimidation. A mail notice here, a drone overhead there. The president herself came down, blazer stiff, heels sinking slightly into the gravel, eyes cold. She expected a reaction. I didn't give one. Not then, not ever. I only observed. I let their overconfidence grow like a weed. Knowing the moment they revealed weakness, I would act. The first act of escalation came quietly. Tires pressed into my driveway at dawn. Not lost. Not delivery. Their direction, speed timing, it was deliberate. Every detail a message. We're testing your patience. And every time, the land warned me. Broken branches, displaced gravel, subtle shifts in animal patterns. Daisy never barked at nothing. Once. Asterisk. The sun rose one morning, painting long shadows. Across the pasture, I stepped onto the porch and saw them. The president's black SUV parked just past the gate. She stepped out, clipboard in hand. 2 men followed. The ones with bolt cutters last time? No new men, but the same arrogant energy? She didn't speak. She didn't wave. She just stared. I raised my coffee cup, not in greeting, but in acknowledgement. A quiet signal. I saw her. And I was ready. Daisy growled softly, tail stiff. I tightened my grip on the shotgun resting across my arm. Not threatening, just presence, authority, ownership. A letter fluttered to my feet from the SUV typed. Sharp, precise, failure to comply will result in immediate legal action. The board reserves all rights. I picked it up and laughed, out loud. The sound carried across the valley. The arrogance in her posture faltered for the first time. She didn't like it. I did asterisk later that evening. I sat on the porch, Cup of black coffee in hand, the valley spread below me like a painting. Daisy at my feet, silence. My mind ran through the day. Their boldness, their ignorance, their belief that I was powerless. Let the anger simmer, then fade. It wasn't rage that would win this. Patience, observation, strategy that would win. Every notice, every drone, every SUV tracking my driveway, they were laying their own trap. I only had to see it. I only had to act when the time was right. Asterisk 2 days later, headlights appeared in the distance at dusk. Not my neighbors, not random. Drivers. Black SUVs creeping slowly along the gravel. Daisy growled, ears pinned, every muscle tense. I stepped to the gate. Not a weapon drawn, just eyes trained on the approaching vehicles. The SUVs stopped. Engines idle. 3 men stepped out. A clipboard, a drone controller, a notebook. They circled my driveway slowly, like predators testing the perimeter. I walked. Out into the open, hands empty, shotgun still resting across my arm. One of the men waved, a taunting, arrogant wave. I didn't flinch. Daisy growled. The land told me exactly what was coming, and then it happened. One SUV door slammed, startling a hawk perched on the fence. Wings flapped, screaming across the valley. The distraction gave me what I needed. A clear read on their positions, their arrogance, their predictable patterns. Every mistake, every step calculated in my mind for the moment I'd act. Asterisk that night. I pored over the drone sticker I had collected days earlier. Reflection, software, flight pattern. Every inch recorded, every route mapped. They had made the classic error of underestimating their target. The sticker told me who controlled the drones, their patrol schedule, even the pattern they used when they thought no one was watching. I smirked. The psychological tables had shifted. They thought they were observing me. They didn't realize. I had become the observer, asterisk, the next morning. I received a notice by certified mail. Failure to comply will result in immediate legal action. Board intervention scheduled next week. I walked to the gate, boots crunching, Daisy beside me. The horizon stretched across the valley. The trucks, the drones, the letters, they had all escalated. But now I had the advantage, and when the HOA showed up next, I wasn't just defending my land anymore. I was ready to control the narrative, turn every overstep, every arrogance-fueled mistake. Against them, this was the calm before the storm. The board had no idea what was coming, and I wasn't planning to warn them. The letters had stopped for 1 day, just one. I should have felt relief. I didn't. Because silence can be louder than threats. I poured my coffee onto the porch. Daisy beside me, ears twitching at the slightest sound. Traced my eyes over the valley, over the HOA's little pocket of uniform houses far below. That morning, the land spoke in a different language, a whispering breeze, shifting dust. A crooked fence post that hadn't been like that yesterday. Someone had been here. Again, and I knew exactly who. Asterisk, they thought they could intimidate me with protocol, letters, and the law. Board intervention scheduled, they wrote. A subtle threat masked as authority. They didn't know I had spent years learning the rhythm of this land, learning the pattern of human arrogance. You could almost see them puff up in self-importance. With every notice mailed or every SUV circling the driveway, I didn't react, not yet. I was collecting data tracking drone patterns, vehicle schedules, the exact hours their patrols favored. Every misstep, every assumption they made was a piece of a puzzle I would exploit. Asterisk, that evening, headlights appeared again along the gravel, slow, deliberate. SUVs, black, polished, thinking they were invisible. I walked out, shotgun across. My arm, not a threat, a presence. Daisy growled low. They paused. One stepped out, notebook in hand. He jotted, glancing around. Another fiddled with the drone controller, confident, overconfident. I didn't speak. I didn't move aggressively, just watched. Each step, each flicker of light on reflective badges. Every shadow they cast was logged in my mind. Then I stepped. Closer, deliberately, letting my boots crunch against the gravel. Daisy barked once soft, controlled. They flinched, a subtle, almost imperceptible victory. Asterisk back on the porch. I considered what I had learned. Years of isolation on this land had taught me patience. The HOA had taught me arrogance. And now, I had knowledge. The quiet moments were just as important as the confrontations. The hush of dawn, the distant crow, the way the wind shifted the dust, they were all signals. And now, for the first time, the pattern emerged. They were predictable. They would return. They would escalate. And they would make mistakes I could exploit. Asterisk. Weeks earlier, the drone sticker I had found. I had traced it to a small company under contract with the HOA. Cheap surveillance tech, predictable flight paths, blind spots. Every flaw I noted, every error logged. And then I started planting evidence, not illegal, not threatening, just small, perfectly placed disruptions. Branches nudged into the path, gravel lightly disturbed, small scarecrow I placed at the edge of the property line angled to appear in drone footage. Nothing dramatic, nothing dangerous, just enough to inject doubt. And it worked. The next drone passes were off, circling too wide, too cautious. The men grew hesitant, scanning more, doubting themselves. Anxiety is infectious. Even the most entitled board member feels it when their confidence wavers. Asterisk, then came the first physical misstep. A black SUV slowed at the gate. One of their men leaned out, measuring tape in hand. A shadow moved on the far hill. I had positioned it there hours before. A trick of sunlight, a hidden scare. He froze mid-dash step. Another SUV honked. Confused. The board's little army of arrogance, suddenly unsure, flustered. I didn't even need to lift my shotgun, my land, my strategy, my observation more powerful than any weapon that day. Asterisk that night. Letters arrived again. Typed. Threatening, urgent, immediate compliance required. Failure to respond will result in legal consequences. I smiled. Out loud, Daisy cocked her head.
Ow.
The irony wasn't lost. They believed compliance was fear-driven. They didn't know I was driving the narrative, shaping every encounter. Every notice they sent, every patrol, every drone flight. They were now puppets in a game they didn't realize they were playing. Asterisk, 2 nights later. At 2 a.m., I heard it again. Gravel shifted. Tires wide, aggressive, not lost. Circling, testing. I stepped onto the porch, shotgun, resting lightly across my arms. Daisy growled. And then I laughed. Not maliciously, not loudly. Just low, controlled, full of the kind of satisfaction you get when the predator believes it's stalking prey. And the prey has already planned its counter. The SUV moved closer. They thought they were intimidating me. Instead, they were walking into the subtle snare I had set over weeks. Every movement predictable. Every overstep cataloged. Every inch of arrogance recorded for the coming payback. Asterisk, I began documenting my property in ways they couldn't ignore. Fences painted exactly. 2 HOA codes. Trees pruned to perfection. Outbuildings aligned to the letter of the law. Every improvement fully compliant, but with subtle, irreversible technicalities that would expose overreach the next time they tried enforcement. They wanted me afraid. They wanted me to break. Instead, I used their own obsession with rules against them. The clever satisfaction wasn't in confrontation. It was in obedience. On my terms. Asterisk. And then it happened. A misstep so obvious, so arrogant, I could barely believe it. One SUV parked too close to the gate. Tires on my perfectly maintained gravel line. The board had made a mistake. And I knew, in that instant, that the endgame had begun. The patience, the observation, the small victories, they were about to pay off in a way the HOA would never forget. I stepped back onto the porch, shotgun resting lightly, eyes scanning. The valley. Daisy at my side, ears pricked. The board had no idea what was coming, and I wasn't planning to warn them. The sun was low, brushing gold over the valley. Shadows stretched across the gravel like silent witnesses. Daisy sat at my side, tail curled, ears alert. The land felt
Alive.
expectant, like it had been holding its breath, waiting for this moment. I stepped toward the gate, boots firm against the gravel. The tire tracks were fresh. Black SUVs had returned to Ragans fully restored, blind to the trap they had walked into weeks ago. They thought compliance was optional. They thought observation and threats could intimidate me. They had no idea I had spent weeks, months even, turning every overstep into an opportunity. I opened the gate, slowly, purposefully, and that was the first mistake they made. Asterisk every letter I received, every drone flight, every SUV circling my driveway wasn't just harassment, it was a map, a roadmap of their arrogance, their habits, their predictable assumptions. I had repainted fences, aligned outbuildings, pruned trees, documented compliance down to the millimeter. All rules bad. In ways designed to amplify any minor misstep, their obsession with perfection was their downfall. Each tiny violation they overlooked, every attempt to enforce overreach, now existed on a record I had meticulously prepared. The board had thought they were hunting me. In reality, I had been setting the stage for them to self-destruct. Asterisk, the SUVs crested the hill, tires crunching against my private gravel road. The president stepped out first, heels clicking, clipboard in hand. Men followed, cameras, measuring tape, the works. She didn't speak. Her eyes flicked to the fences, the outbuildings, the perfectly pruned trees. She hesitated, subtle, almost imperceptible. But it was enough. I stepped forward, shotgun resting lightly across my arms, Daisy growling softly, my voice calm, steady. You're exactly on the gravel. I just finished aligning to HOA standards. You know what happens when rules are broken? Her eyes narrowed. You'll find out soon, I continued. But first, let's walk the property. Asterisk. We walked the driveway. I pointed to each meticulously documented feature. Fences, trees, outbuildings. Every inch compliant, every inch perfect. Except for the areas where I had left minor technical loopholes that only someone foolish enough to challenge me would. Trigger. The president's men were sweating, cameras jiggling in hands. They realized they weren't in control. Every movement scrutinized, every step calculated, and every overstep being silently recorded. And then it happened. One SUV parked a tire squarely on the gravel alignment I had just completed. Click. I had been ready. Photos taken, video recorded. Every single violation perfectly documented. The smile in my mind was smug, patient, unstoppable. Asterisk, the president's face went pale. She realized she had walked into my trap. Every bit of entitlement she had wheeled, letters, patrols, drones, was now a record against her. Her board would see it. Legal action would be inevitable, but the irony was delicious. You're violating your own rules, she stammered, voice tight. Technically, I said, but by your standards, you've already lost. Daisy barked once, a punctuation mark in the quiet humiliation. Asterisk, weeks of patience flashed in my mind. Tire tracks circled and left, like invitations I had waited to accept. Drones hovered, and I turned their flight paths into evidence. Letters arrived, threats mounting, all documented. Every test they had performed became a piece of the final puzzle. Every act of arrogance was a stroke in the portrait of their downfall. And now, the painting was complete. Asterisk, the sheriff had been notified beforehand. Not as a reaction, but as a strategic inevitability. As the president barked commands to her men, insisting that they could seize control, the engines of authority arrived, polite, lawful, and patient. Cuffs clicks, echoing across the valley. Cameras dropped, bolt cutters forgotten, the patrols. Their threats, their arrogance finally undone. The president froze, realizing that every overstep, every assumption of power, had led to her own public humiliation. The land had done its work. I had done mine. Asterisk, I lowered my shotgun. Daisy nudged my side. The valley was quiet. Shadows lengthened. The wind whispered through the trees as if congratulating me. The HOA had learned what happens when entitlement meets patience, observation, and strategy. They had assumed I was a passive target. They had assumed their authority extended beyond reason, and they had been spectacularly wrong. I walked the graveled driveway, slowly savoring the satisfaction that had been months in the making. Every small act, every tiny detail, every patient observation it had led here. The land had warned me. I had listened. They had trespassed. I had waited. They had assumed. I had executed. And in the end, justice wasn't just served, it was inevitable, cinematic, and utterly satisfying. Asterisk sitting on the porch that night, coffee in hand, Daisy at my side, I realized something. The world rewards patience, strategy, and respect for what's yours. Entitlement only carries so far, arrogance even less. The HOA had learned it the hard way. I'd learned that sometimes the quietest, most patient observation is the most powerful weapon of all. The land had spoken. I had answered. And for once, everything was exactly as it should be. Asterisk.